Greetings, family. Today I would like to talk about signature without liability premier. Without a little foundation, signature without liability may be a little confusing. This premier is intended to provide some basic fundamental knowledge which may take the following writing more understandable. If you have no previous knowledge of these matters, the ride is going to be a bit bumpy. It is always the case when we encounter new truths that do not coincide with knowledge we already hold. At least we think it's knowledge that we are holding, but as we learn more, we may well find out differently. In much of the emerging teachings of law and contractual obligations, there is mention of a straw man. The document which follows more appropriately uses the term trade name. My intent here is to provide an understanding on the creation of the straw man or trade name, how they come into existence. In short, a government-issued birth certificate is issued with consent of one parent at the time of birth. The birth certificate is sent to the government agency, generally the Bureau of Vital Statistics. Here, another birth certificate is issued. This one spelling the name of the baby in all capital letters, creating a fictitious entity, the straw man or trade name. If the name on the birth certificates were to represent the baby as a natural individual, it would be spelled with the appropriate upper and lowercase lettering. For example, John Quincy Adams comes in capital J, lowercase O-H-N, and all caps John Quincy Adams is the straw man. The all capital spellings of the name creates a corporate fiction, a straw man, a trade name, which the government can regulate and control. And that is true because I live here. I live in my body, but I reside and do business in the state of Georgia. And there's a such thing as OCGA 1-2-1. It states that there are two classes of persons: the natural person and the artificial person. The natural person is me right here in the flesh and blood, speaking for myself, and the artificial person has a begin date and an end date, which is the all caps. Now, this is in their law, so what I'm speaking on is real. With the issuance of the birth certificate on this fictional character, the straw man or trade name is placed into internal commerce. The government issues a bond on the birth certificate in the amount of $630,000 today's value, and the bond is sold on securities exchange. It is always purchased by the same corporation, the Federal Reserve Bank. Through some trickery and deception, the babies become the surety which guarantees the payback of the bond. The trick is to get the baby to volunteer to pay all his life or her life. And that is what the following essay is about: how to avoid becoming liable for fictional straw man or trade name. That was a creation of the government for the purpose of defrauding an individual, a baby. So basically, when you were born, your mother or your parents unknowingly signed you over to the county. When you were born, the county doctor, he registered it with the state. After the state that you were born in registered, they registered to the federal government, and then the Federal Reserve Banks got a hold to it. And then they traded on the stock market. A little more detailed information: when a child is born in a hospital, generally sends the original, not a copy, of this record of live birth to the State Bureau of Vital Statistics, sometimes called the Department of Health and Rehabilitation Services. Each state is required to supply a corporate United States with birth and death and health statistics. The state agency that receives the original record of live birth keeps it and then issue another birth certificate in a different form where the name of the baby is spelled in all capital letters. This creates a legal person as opposed to a natural individual. And this is how you become state property. This is what makes you state property. This is what makes you able to be controlled and follow statutes and codes that man made instead of following natural law that God made. You are put into this game as a child. You are forced into this game. This I've never seen a game like this, but you are forced into it as a child By the time you become 18, a lot of us start working at 16, but by the time you become 18, you have so many numbers attached to your body. You have a birth certificate number, you have a social security number, and you are like Chattel property. Let me go on, hold on. It says the birth certificate issued by the state is then registered with the U.S. Department of Commerce, the executive office specifically through their own sub-agency, the U.S. Census Bureau, which is responsible to register vital statistics from all states. Thus, the birth certificate is registered in an international commerce. The word registered, as it is used in commercial laws, does not mean the all capital version of the name was merely noted or recorded in a book for future references purposes. When the birth certificate is registered with the United States Department of Commerce, the Treasury will issue a bond on the value of the birth certification. That bond is then made available for purchase of a security exchange and bought by the Federal Reserve Bank. This purchase then becomes the authority or collateral to issue Federal Reserve notes, which we use as a medium of exchange to do business. A Federal Reserve note. If you look at your money, at the top of it, it says Federal Reserve note after 1933. It used to say silver certificate, but now it says Federal Reserve note. It says the value of the bond in today's world is $630,000, and the bond is then held in a trust fund, the Federal Reserve, at the Depository Trust Company at 55 Water Street in New York City, about 2 blocks down the street from the Federal Reserve. It is a high-rise office building, and the sign in front reads, "The Tower of Power." Woo, they're bold. The process creates a burden in that all capital legal person name on the birth certificate has become a surety or grantor, a condition and obligation that is automatically unwittingly assumed unless you rebut the presumption by effectively noticing government. Grantor, person who becomes secondary liable for another debt or performance. One who promises to answer for the debt, default, or miscarriage of another. Black's Law Dictionary. That's the 6th edition Black's Law Dictionary. From this, it is easy to conclude that the baby is to assume liability for any burden created or associated with the straw man or trade name listed on the birth certificate. Now, have you guys ever been in a situation where, because a lot of us wasn't born into money, but I know some people that have been in situations where when their people came into situations where they had to fend for themselves, we didn't know anything about credit, we didn't know anything about doing business or none of that. And once the parents' credit got messed up, they start putting things in their children's name. So by the time the children is of age to utilize their own stock numbers, which is those birth certificate bonds and that social security numbers, they're messed up because it's already been utilized. So those birth certificates and those social security cards, those are parts of the mark of the beast. You may not want to believe it, but it's true. They're trading us on the stock market. And there is an old saying, a child is worth its weight in gold. So when you're born, the United States pledges those birth certificates to England. That's why the Queen was so wealthy, because they pledged us as innocent children that we would pay back a debt that we had nothing to do with. Birth certificate bonds are real, and this is something that you guys need to get into. I would recommend correcting your status, which is getting a nationality, and I also would recommend, learning who you are and learning how to operate in the private versus being public. When you operate in the public under that all caps name, you are considered dead in the eyes of the law. That's why a lot of them don't respect you. That's why a lot of them do things that they don't supposed to do. And I just think that you guys should learn how to operate privately. Operating privately is something completely different. It's something that we can talk about and something that I can teach you about. It's called operating through trust or something of that nature. And it's something that I do speak on and teach about. But there's a note in this. It says the material is copyrighted by the authors. So basically, when your mom unknowingly, or your dad or your parents sign you over, they make you property of the state. There's a book called Born Free. I would suggest you guys get that book, read it, and study it. It's time to free your minds. We have to wake up and understand that this artificial entity, which is the government and these devilish minded people, they are taking control of our lives. And if you look at it, we're never free. It's always an everyday hustle. No, we have to wake up. I want us to wake up. It's not about a fight. It's just about not participating. If we stop giving these people our energy and become mentalists and learn how to live with the bare minimum so you can have a peace of mind, then we may take this beast down. Thank you.